My name is Quincy Alden. I am 68 years old, and I have buried many people I loved. Nothing prepared me for this morning. My son Ethan lay in a polished oak casket surrounded by white lilies that filled the chapel with a sharp, floral sweetness. The air was cold, the kind of cold that settles under your coat and refuses to leave. People whispered in low tones near the back pews. I heard the rustle of programs and the muted tremor of choked breath. I stood near the casket with my gloved hands folded. My grief did not roar. It throbbed in quiet waves that rose and fell in my chest. Years as a forensic examiner had taught me to hold steady during the worst storms. Yet nothing was steady now. My knees trembled under the weight of a pain I still could not name. The scent of lilies mixed with the faint smell of wax from the altar candles. Together they formed a memory I would never forget. Nora Bennett. My daughter-in-law moved through the chapel with practiced grace. She wore a black fitted dress and a polished expression. Her eyes glistened when people looked at her. She dabbed the corner of her eye at perfect intervals. She held a tissue just loosely enough to look fragile, but never so tight that it wrinkled. A performance, a flawless one. Guests placed hands on her shoulder and called her brave. She nodded with the poise of someone receiving an award. I watched quietly from the side. She never glanced my way, not once. The service ended with a hymn Ethan loved. My throat tightened as the first notes rose from the organ. I remembered the day he played that tune on our old piano. He had been 13 and full of laughter. The memory hit me like a physical blow. When the final verse faded, guests stood and formed a slow-moving line to offer condolences. Nora positioned herself at the front. I stood a few steps behind her. People hugged her. People praised her strength. People barely looked at me. Then it happened. A woman placed both hands on my arm and whispered that she was sorry for my loss. Nora turned toward me. Her face shifted. Her eyes darkened. She leaned in close enough for me to smell her perfume. Her voice was soft. Her words were a blade. "Stop crying. Pack your bags and be gone when the guests leave." I did not answer. My breath lodged in my chest. Her tone was icy. Her expression never changed. She smiled warmly when another guest approached. The transformation was instant. The mask returned. She placed her hand over her heart and thanked them for attending. The only sign of her cruelty was a flicker in her eyes. Hattie Monroe, my 72-year-old neighbor, stood in line behind me. She saw Nora's face. Hattie had been a school principal for 30 years. She knew the look of a bully. Her brows shot up. Her mouth formed a thin, tight line. She squeezed my arm gently and whispered, "I saw that. Do not you worry." I gave a small nod, a simple gesture, controlled, precise. Grief loosened its grip for a brief moment. Anger pulsed in its place. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind that settles deep into the ribs. I inhaled slowly. The air tasted metallic. Nora finished greeting guests. She walked to the front door's heels, clicking against the floor. She waited there like a hostess at a dinner party. Her posture was straight. Her chin was lifted. She thanked each person as they passed. I stayed at the back watching her. She lifted a delicate hand to tuck her hair behind her ear. The move was effortless. She was selling a story to this room, a story where she was the strong widow and I was the fragile burden. The truth sat in my throat like a stone. Hattie stayed near me. She did not speak again, but her presence steadied my breath. When the chapel finally emptied, I stepped outside. The November wind slapped my cheeks and made my eyes sting. Some people might have mistaken the tears for cold. They were not wrong. Nora approached me with sharp steps. Her perfect mask slipped a fraction. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "You heard me. Be gone by tonight. I am not running a charity." She turned before I could reply. She walked to Ethan's car and opened the trunk. Inside, I saw 2 of my suitcases. My suitcases. Packed. Zipped. Stacked like cargo. Hattie let out a low whistle. While she moves fast, I let the wind dry my eyes. I refused to give Nora more tears. Not here, not like this. I walked to the car slowly. My hands did not shake. My voice did not tremble. I said one sentence, a sentence colder than the wind. I will leave, but not the way you expect. Nora frowned, confused. She slammed the trunk shut and crossed her arms. I turned and walked away. My boots crunched on the gravel path. Each step felt heavy but deliberate. The sky hung low with gray clouds. A storm was coming, though not the kind Nora feared. I reached my own car and opened the door. I paused for a moment. The chapel behind me was quiet again. Only the flagpole clanged in the wind. I rested my hand on the steering wheel and exhaled slowly. I drove home without speaking. The heater hummed. The road stretched before me like a thin ribbon of cold asphalt. My mind replayed Nora's words, not with shock, but with clarity. Those words had cracked something inside me, not my spirit, my patience. I arrived at the house Ethan grew up in. The porch boards creaked under my weight. The front door clicked shut behind me. The silence inside was sharp, familiar, heavy. I set my bag down. I hung my coat. I looked around the living room. I inhaled. My voice was calm as I spoke to the empty air. I only smirked and walked away. But Nora does not know something important. I stood still for a beat. The quiet wrapped around me. In 12 hours, the police will knock on her door, and that was the truth. When I stepped into the house that afternoon, the old hinges gave their usual sigh. That sound had greeted me for 30 years. It felt different now. I closed the door and leaned my back against it for a moment. My coat still smelled like incense and lilies. The quiet pressed in on me. This house was not a mansion. It was a solid 2-story place with faded siding and a porch that needed paint. Every board carried a memory. Ethan had learned to ride his bike along this street. He had tracked mud across this same floor after rainy football practices. Margaret had laughed instead of scolding. I walked slowly through the hallway. On the left, the old family photographs marched up the wall in mismatched frames. On the right, the console table sagged slightly under too many keys. In the living room, the afternoon light spilled across the worn sofa. The cushions had permanent dips from years of movie nights and quiet Sundays. It felt lived in. I stood there and let the silence settle. This house had held birthdays, arguments, apologies, and long winters. It had held my marriage. It had held my son. For a brief moment, the grief crested again. I pictured Ethan at 16 sprawled on that same sofa, explaining some complicated bridge design with his hands. My chest tightened. Then a different thought surfaced. Nora had called it her house at the church. She had packed my bags. People use words carelessly. Documents do not. The forensic part of my brain nudged me back to the present. I took a slow breath. There would be time to mourn. There also needed to be time to look. I checked the mail stacked on the hallway table. Utility bills, a flyer for gutter cleaning, one envelope from the county tax office, all addressed to me, not to Ethan. I placed them in a neat pile and moved to the dining room. The table still had the small scratch Ethan made when he was 10. He cried. I did not. Wood can be fixed, I had told him. People matter more than furniture. The scratch was still there, a small, honest scar in the finish. I walked into the kitchen. The clock above the stove ticked steadily. The refrigerator hummed. Margaret's recipe cards sat in a metal box by the sink. At least I thought they did. The box was gone. I stopped. The corner of the counter where it had always rested was bare. A faint square of lighter color marked its absence. I opened the nearest cabinet. Empty shelf, no chipped mugs, no faded cereal bowls. The next cabinet, also empty. My heartbeat changed rhythm. Not panic, something colder. I moved to the pantry. 4 shelves of labeled jars had become one dusty row of canned soup and crackers. The rest was clear. Someone had been busy. I followed the disruption like a trail, into the den. The walls looked naked. My framed certificates from the forensics lab were missing, even the small award Ethan once teased me about. The bookshelf had gaps. A whole row of Ethan's engineering textbooks had vanished. The remaining books leaned crookedly like teeth after a pulled molar. Upstairs, the change was harsher. Ethan's room stood open. It had never been left open before. He used to insist on privacy the way young men do. I stepped inside. The posters were gone. The desk was bare. The model bridge he and I built together was missing from its spot by the window. Only the dust outline remained. His closet hung half empty. The familiar flannel shirts and jeans were gone, just a few wire hangers left behind. The room no longer smelled like him. In their place near the corner stood 3 large plastic bins. Transparent sides, neatly stacked lids. Inside, Ethan's things were folded and pressed into cold rectangles, ready to be stored or discarded. A soft click sounded behind me. I turned. Nora stood in the doorway. She had changed out of her funeral dress into leggings and an oversized sweater. Efficient morning attire. "Oh," she said, "you are still here." Her tone suggested I had overstayed a hotel checkout time. She walked past me without waiting for an answer. She tugged on one of the bins to align it perfectly. "I thought you might already be packing," she added. "I have a pretty tight schedule if we want this place ready before spring." I let the words sit in the air. My gaze drifted to the empty shelves again. "Where are Ethan's books?" I asked. My voice sounded calm to my own ears. "Donated," she replied. "Well, most of them. Nobody needs that many old textbooks collecting dust." "Old textbooks," I repeated. "They were outdated anyway," she said. "This house needs a fresh start. Clean lines, neutral pieces. Buyers want to imagine their own life here, not yours." She flashed a quick smile that did not reach her eyes. "This house has not been listed," I said. "There is no buyer yet." Nora sighed like she was speaking to a stubborn child. "I am a stager Quincy. This is what I do. If we want top dollar, we have to start now." "We," I said quietly. "Yes," she answered. "We. I am handling the adult decisions here. The sooner we get this place ready, the sooner you can move somewhere appropriate." She moved toward the window and looked out over the street. "This house needs a new era. Your era is over." The sentence landed with more force than she intended. Sometimes truth does that. Sometimes cruelty does that too. I studied her reflection in the glass. Her jaw was set. Her eyes were fixed on the yard like it was a project board. She did not see a home. She saw a listing. Behind us, a familiar voice called up the stairs. "Quincy, you up there? I brought pie. And gossip. Hattie." Nora rolled her eyes. "Perfect timing," she muttered. I stepped into the hall and leaned over the railing. "We are in Ethan's room, Hattie." Hattie climbed the stairs slower than she used to, but with the same stubborn energy. She carried a bakery box in one hand and a tote bag in the other. When she reached the landing, she took one look at the clear shelves behind me. Her lips pursed. "Well," she said, "looks like a hotel room that gave up trying." Nora folded her arms. "I am decluttering. Serious buyers hate clutter." Hattie nodded slowly. "Is that so? Funny. Last I checked, serious humans like evidence that someone actually lived." She walked into the room and tapped a plastic bin with one knuckle. "These storage tubs," she said. "Walmart. $10 for 2. I have the same ones for my old magazines." Nora stiffened. "These are perfectly fine. They are functional." "Oh, sure," Hattie replied. "Functional is the new luxurious. I must have missed that memo." The corners of my mouth twitched. It was not a smile exactly, more like a tiny crack in the mask of grief. Hattie caught the shift and winked. Nora lifted her chin. "Once the furniture is replaced and the walls are repainted, this place will finally feel modern. Buyers pay for modern." She said the word modern the way some people say salvation. "Modern can be nice," Hattie said. "So can soul. Hard to find both in the same sofa, though." Nora ignored her and pulled out her phone. She took several photos of the empty room. Her thumbs moved quickly as she typed notes. Measurements, color ideas, plans that did not include me. While she worked, I let my eyes move carefully over every surface, every change, every absence. The imprint on the carpet where Ethan's bed had stood. the faint ring on the nightstand from his coffee mug, the single screw left on the floor forgotten when she dismantled his shelves. The forensic part of my mind woke fully. I had lived years by reading scenes, crime scenes, document tables, people's desks. You can tell a great deal from what is missing. I noted the speed of her work, the order of removal, personal items first, certificates, photos, books, then functional items, dishes, linens. She was erasing personhood before utility. She had not touched the framed print Ethan bought with his first paycheck. It still hung crooked near the closet. She might have missed it. People miss what they do not value. Hattie's gaze followed mine. Her eyebrows lifted. She knew I was cataloging details. She had watched me prepare for court enough times to recognize the pattern. "Do not mind me," Hattie said lightly. "I am just here to deliver pie and witness the makeover of the century." Nora shot her a sharp look. "This is none of your business." "Funny," Hattie replied. "Looks a lot like my friend's business. Her name is still on the envelopes by the door." I said nothing. I did not argue. I simply watched. Every word, every movement, every choice. In my line of work, you learn that the first scene always tells a story. Not the whole story, enough to know where to look next. Nora thought she was drafting a new era. To her, walls and fabrics mattered more than history, more than Ethan, more than the woman who had made this house possible. She did not know that while she staged her future, I was quietly staging something else. Not revenge, not a show, just the truth prepared and waiting. I let my hand rest for a moment on the doorframe Ethan once leaned against. This house has a long memory, I thought. So do I. I woke early the next morning. Cold light slipped through the blinds and landed on the floor in thin gray lines. I sat at the edge of my bed and listened to the house breathe. Old houses breathe in slow creaks and soft shifts. This one felt uneasy, as if it sensed the intrusion. I put on a sweater and walked downstairs. The kitchen smelled faintly of lemon cleaner, a smell I never used. Nora had been busy again. I opened the drawer where I kept my tools. The screwdriver set was gone. The drawer held only a single chipped plate. I boiled water for tea and leaned against the counter. My hand stayed steady, but my mind moved quickly. Nora had cleared Ethan's things without a question. She had packed my belongings without a pause. She assumed the rights. She assumed the ownership. She assumed the power. People show you everything when they think you have nothing. Footsteps clicked across the tiles. Nora entered the kitchen holding a clipboard. Her sweater hung loose. Her hair was tied in a neat knot. "You should eat something," she said without looking at me. "We have a long day." I repeated. She set the clipboard down and flipped to a page of notes. "Buyers expect a clean layout. Curb appeal needs attention, and the attic is a mess." I took my mug and held it close. "This house has not been listed." "Not yet," she said, "but it will be. Ethan inherited the house, and now it is mine." She said it the way someone says the weather is warm. Absolute, unquestioned, finished. I set the mug on the counter. "You believe the house passed to him?" "It did," she said. "That is how marriage works. Spouses inherit." "That is not accurate," I said. She waved a hand. "Please, Quincy, you live on Social Security. You do not understand these things. Let me handle the real paperwork." The words sliced deeper than she knew. She thought I survived on government checks. She thought I was naive. She thought I knew nothing about legal structures or property. She assumed everything. I studied her face. She did not see me. She saw a frail widow standing in her way. I opened the window for air. Cold wind swept in. My mind drifted to a different time, a quiet memory. Ethan in his 20s, sitting at this same table with a pile of envelopes. He rubbed his forehead with both hands. "Mom," he said, "why do banks make this so confusing?" I had laughed. "They do not make it confusing. People just never read." "I hate reading this stuff," he said. "Too many words." "You design bridges," I said. "Words should not scare you." He shrugged. Concrete makes sense. Paper does not. Ethan was brilliant with structures but hopeless with documents. He could calculate load distribution in seconds, but he never understood deeds, trusts, or inheritance terms. It was the one thing he always asked me to help with. I remembered guiding his hand through a refinancing form. He smiled shyly and said, "Mom, you read like a detective." He was right. I did, and I still do. The memory faded as Nora snapped her pen. "We need to keep things moving," she said. "The sooner you get settled somewhere else, the better. An assisted living studio, maybe. Something simple." "Simple," I said. "For your budget," she added. She headed toward the stairs. Her voice carried back to me. "I know this is hard. Change always is. But this house needs someone who can afford it." The assumption hung in the air like smoke. I finished my tea and rinsed the cup. My reflection in the window looked older but very awake. I placed the cup on the drying rack and moved through the hallway. The morning felt colder than the night. I passed the console table and noticed something near the edge, a tiny tear in the wood. Fresh, not from age, from force. I bent slightly and ran my finger over it. Rough, sharp. A drawer had been pulled open too quickly. Someone in a hurry. Someone careless. I knelt and opened the drawer. It was half empty. Folders gone. Receipts gone. My old notebooks gone. The corner of one torn page remained, stuck between the drawer bottom and the side panel. I lifted it with care. The paper smelled faintly of perfume. Not mine. Nora's. I held the torn piece to the light. The top edge ripped unevenly. The bottom showed the tail of a signature line. A few letters in ink. Not Ethan's handwriting. Not mine. I turned it over. The backside had a faint crease. Someone had folded it, then unfolded it, then torn it. Hasty movements. Stress movements. A pulse pushed through my ribs. Not panic. Instinct. The instinct you develop from 3 decades of forensic work. The instinct that whispers when something is wrong. I held the paper close. The ink strokes were uncertain, hesitant. A sharp stop in the middle of a letter. The pressure was uneven. Someone trying to imitate confidence. Someone trying to copy a signature without understanding its rhythm. A forged hand always reveals its fear. I placed the torn paper in my sweater pocket and closed the drawer gently. From behind me, a voice cleared a throat. I turned. Hattie stood in the doorway holding a small bag of groceries. "Morning," she said. "I brought eggs. Grocery stores depress me, so I buy 2 of everything." I straightened. "You came early. You looked like you needed early," she said, "and I wanted to check on you before she starts rearranging the roof." She set the bag down and glanced at the drawer. "Something wrong?" she asked. "Something missing," I said. Hattie leaned closer. Her eyes narrowed. She has been touching things she should not touch. She assumes she owns everything I said. "She assumes wrong," Hattie replied. We stood there quietly for a moment. The house settled again with a long sigh. Nora's voice floated down from upstairs. "Quincy, I need you to sign something later, standard transfer forms." I felt the torn paper in my pocket, cool, thin, damning. Assumptions can move quickly, but evidence moves faster. I looked at Hattie. She raised her brows as if she already knew. Action rose inside me, silent and steady, the kind that does not announce itself, the kind that builds until the truth becomes unavoidable. I walked toward the stairs, each step slow and intentional. Nora thought she was writing the next chapter of this house. She did not know I had already started reading the first line of hers, and it was written in ink that did not belong here. I did not go upstairs when Nora called my name. Instead, I stood in the hallway and rested my hand on the console table. The torn slip of paper in my pocket felt heavier than it should. Thin light, almost weightless, yet full of questions. Standard transfer forms, she had said. That phrase bothered me. In my career, phrases like that often hid something sharper. People covered blades with soft words. They covered fraud with friendly ink. The house creaked above me. Doors opening, drawers sliding, Nora moving with purpose. I turned away from the stairs and walked toward the basement door. The knob felt cool in my hand. I flicked on the light and started down. The basement air wrapped around me, cooler, denser, carrying the familiar scent of concrete dust and old cardboard, a faint note of engine oil from the mower in the corner. I passed the shelves of paint cans and tools. Each item sat where I had left it. Down here, Nora's touch had not reached yet. She preferred surfaces, not foundations. Against the far wall stood the filing cabinet. 4 drawers, beige metal, ugly by anyone's decorating standard, beautiful to someone who believes in paper trails. I had bought it 42 years ago, back when Margaret and I still argued about whether we needed that much storage. She teased me. Then she labeled the first folder herself. I ran my hand over the top. A thin coat of dust clung to my fingers. Old paper has a particular smell, slightly sweet, slightly bitter, like time itself. Each drawer had a small label: 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. I pulled open the one marked 90s. The metal slid with a soft groan. Inside were rows of manila folders, edges curled from use, tabs handwritten in black ink, mortgage paid off, roof replacement, property taxes, insurance renewals, my life organized and punched with holes. I found the folder I wanted, deed and closing papers. It was thick. I carried it to the workbench and set it down gently. Some documents age like people. They deserve respect. The first sheet was slightly yellowed. County letterhead. Date near the top. April 3rd, 1992. My name typed clearly. Quincy May Alden. A single woman hereby purchases the property, located at followed by my address. No co-owner listed. No mention of Ethan. He had been a teenager then, more interested in car magazines than property law. The deed itself sat underneath. Heavier paper. Embossed seal in the corner. I traced my name with one finger. My signature, firm and confident, sat at the bottom. The ink had not faded. I turned the page. There were copies of the property survey, the closing statement, early tax bills, all addressed to me. No joint tenancy, no transfer on death clause, no automatic inheritance to Ethan. Nora's sentence from that morning echoed in my head. Ethan inherited the house, and now it is mine. She had not read this. She had not read anything. She had simply assumed. I slipped the folder back and opened another. Homeowner's insurance, policies from different years, same company, same insured party, my name always. Coverage amounts, premiums, payment confirmations. I lingered on a recent statement, issued last year, named insured Quincy M. Alden, no additional insured listed, no endorsement adding Ethan, no mention of Nora anywhere. Insurance follows ownership. It rarely leads. The truth was simple, legal, boring, and simple. I owned the house. I had always owned the house. But the torn paper in my pocket suggested something else, not about the past, about an attempt to rewrite it. I closed the 90s drawer and opened the one labeled 2000s, newer folders, less yellow but just as full. Near the back, one tab stood out in neat capital letters, Revocable Living Trust 2001. My heart changed rhythm again. Not panic, focus. I removed the folder and carried it to the bench. Inside, there was a formal trust agreement. Pages stapled, corners aligned. I remembered working on this with an attorney before Ethan turned 20. The first page named me as grantor and trustee. It described the trust property in careful detail. Investments, savings, future assets. It designated Ethan as a lifetime beneficiary. I flipped to the section on distributions. Trustee may provide for the health, education, maintenance, and support of Ethan James Alden. There was no language granting him ownership of the trust assets themselves. Another section caught my eye. Upon the death of the grantor, remaining trust assets shall pass according to the attached schedule of beneficiaries. I turned to the schedule. Charities. A scholarship fund idea Margaret had loved. A small percentage to be divided among extended family. Ethan's share was generous during my life, but not controlling after. He had been comfortable, because I made sure he was comfortable. Nothing more mystical than that. At the back of the folder sat a thinner packet labeled Proposed Amendment 2019. My stomach tightened as I remembered that year. Ethan newly married, Margaret only 6 months gone. Everyone raw. I opened the packet. The first page was typed in my attorney's familiar format. The amendment proposed a small change. It added Nora's name as a contingent beneficiary for a modest percentage after my death. It was not much. A gesture of welcome. Ethan had requested it. He wanted his wife to feel included. I remembered that meeting clearly. Ethan sitting in the office chair, tapping his knee. "Is this too much?" he had asked. "It is fair," I answered, "and it is my choice." The document in my hands now bore my signature in one place. Firm. Steady. The line for Ethan's signature, however, was blank. I closed my eyes for a moment. Yes. He had planned to sign. Then work had exploded with deadlines. Then life crowded in. Then time slipped past. He had never come back to finish this. There was another set of pages tucked behind the unsigned amendment. Same heading. Amendment to Revocable Living Trust. Same date, same language, different detail. This copy had 2 signatures, mine and Ethan's, except the second signature did not belong to my son. I felt it before I fully saw it, the way a former musician hears a wrong note before naming it. I laid the signed page next to an older document, Ethan's original trust acknowledgement from 2001. The signatures were supposed to match. They did not. His real signature slanted slightly to the right. The capital E was open and fluid. The tail of the N dropped gently before rising into the T. The pressure stayed even throughout. On the newer page, the E was cramped. The N rose too high. There was a hesitation marker mid-stroke, a tiny ink pool where the pen had paused. The line thickness was wrong, heavier at the start, weaker near the end. Someone pressing hard while unsure. A real signature is a practiced dance. A forged one trips over its own feet. I studied the loops in the D of Alden. The real version closed tightly. The forged one gaped open. A small but telling difference. Ink told the truth that people tried to bury. That had been my work for decades. Wills, contracts, confessions, all of them had spoken to me in lines and strokes. This page spoke clearly. Someone had traced Ethan's name without understanding its rhythm. Someone had tried to sign for a man who was no longer here to correct them. I checked the notary block. It was blank. No seal, no witness signature, no date stamp. Half an attempt at legitimacy, half a crime in progress. Behind the trust documents lay another folder, life insurance correspondence. I opened it. Letters from Ethan's employer, policy summaries, beneficiary designation forms. One page carried a simple sentence, primary beneficiary, Alden Family Trust, Quincy M. Alden trustee. Not Nora, not spouse. The trust. Me. The pieces settled into place, not in a dramatic cascade, in a measured, quiet click. Nora believed Ethan owned the house. He did not. Nora believed she inherited the house. She did not. Nora believed my income came from Social Security. It did not. Now I held proof that someone had tried to reshape the trust in ink after Ethan's death, or at best, without proper formality. Someone had reached for money that was not theirs. The basement light buzzed softly overhead. Dust motes floated in the beam like tiny planets. Upstairs, I heard a faint thud, a door closing. Nora moving through my history as if it were staging inventory. I slipped the original deed, the unsigned amendment, the forged page, and the insurance designation into a separate folder. I added the torn strip from my pocket. Together they formed a small but sharp stack. This was no longer about hurtful words at a funeral. It was about intent, decisions. Lines crossed quietly in ink. I closed the filing cabinet and locked it. The key felt solid between my fingers. There is a moment in every investigation when your role shifts. You stop being just the victim. You become the witness. I climbed the stairs slowly, folder in hand. Nora still believed this was her house. She still believed she held the power. She had no idea that the paper she tried to control would be the same paper that brought the police to her door. Min sinoy machkam suktu chuang for vatrien kai. Chapter 5. Jung outline gyong degoy. Igiu pasing va mamong thriller. Plus chut comedy to. Hattie. I did not go looking for a fight. I went looking for a phone number. After I left the basement, I set the folder on the kitchen table. The house felt different now. Less like a home under siege, more like a crime scene waiting to be documented. I made coffee instead of tea. Tea was for grief. Coffee was for work. Steam curled up from the mug. I opened the folder again. The forged signature stared back at me from the page. Ethan's name, but not Ethan's hand. My thumb rested on the bottom margin. There was a small ink dot near the corner. A slip. A tremor. A tiny panic frozen in black. I closed the folder and walked to the junk drawer by the fridge. Every house has one. Ours was full of rubber bands, dead pens, and old receipts. Somewhere under the clutter, there was an address book. I dug through batteries and loose screws until my fingers found the worn spiral binding. The cover was cracked. The pages smelled like dust and ink. That smell always made me feel oddly calm. I flipped to the letter R. The handwriting on that page was mostly mine. Near the middle was a familiar name. Rourke Samuel. 2 numbers, one labeled desk, one labeled cell. I stared at the cell number. I had not used it in 3 years. Retirement parties have a way of scattering people. For a moment I hesitated. Calling Sam meant turning my private suspicion into something official. It meant stepping onto a path I could not easily leave. Then I thought about Ethan's real signature. I thought about Nora's words at the funeral. I thought about my suitcases in her trunk. I picked up the phone and dialed. It rang twice. Then I heard his voice, slightly older, still steady. Rourke. Sam, I said. It is Quincy. There was a pause. Then a warmth I had not realized I missed. Quincy Alden. Now there is a voice I did not expect. You still making lawyers nervous with your reports. Not today, I said. Today I am calling as a mother. His tone shifted at once. The cop in him woke up. I heard about Ethan, he said. I am sorry. I meant to call. I did not know what to say. There is nothing to say, I answered. But there is something I need you to see. Tell me, he said. I glanced at the staircase. Silence from upstairs. Nora must have gone back to her staging lists. I found a trust amendment, I said. 2 versions, one unsigned, one signed with Ethan's name. And he asked, the signed one is not his signature. I said, it is an imitation, sloppy, unwitnessed, no notary, wrong pressure pattern. He did not laugh. He did not say I was overreacting. He had worked with me too long for that. Where is the document, he asked. On my kitchen table, I said. Along with the deed, the insurance designation, and a piece of torn paper that smells like my daughter-in-law's perfume. Another pause, shorter this time. Is she there now, he asked. Upstairs, I said. Planning how to refurnish the house she insists she owns. He exhaled. I could almost hear his mind sorting options. Do not confront her, he said. Not yet. Not about the signature. I was not planning a showdown, I said. I know you, he replied. You prefer cross-examination to shouting. Still, I am asking. Stay quiet until we look at everything. A car passed outside. Its tires whispered along the street. I watched the shadow move across the front window. Can you come by? I asked. Yes, he said. Give me an hour. I will bring a scanner and a magnifier. Old habits die hard. I still have my own magnifier, I said. Of course you do, he answered. Then we will both look. And if you are right, we will do this properly. What does properly mean? I asked. It means the word fraud will not just live in your head, he said. It will live in a report. We ended the call with no small talk. People who have worked scenes together rarely need it. I went to the sink and washed my mug. The act felt almost ceremonial. Grief had to wait. Evidence stood in line first. Outside, a car door shut. Voices drifted through the glass. I looked out the window and saw Hattie crossing my yard. She carried another paper bag and wore a scarf with bright sunflowers. She knocked once and then pushed the door open a few inches. "Do not yell," she called. "I brought real butter. I refuse to grieve with margarine." I met her in the hallway. "You are up early again," I said. "This situation does not let an old woman sleep," she said. "Any new developments, or is she still redecorating you out of existence?" "Both," I said. "Come into the kitchen." She set the bag down and spotted the folder instantly. "Ah," she said, "the famous paper army. Want company while you march it." "I already called Sam," I said. Her eyebrows rose. "Badge Sam." "Yes," I answered. She whistled softly. "Well then, I suppose we are done playing nice." "We will still be polite," I said. "Polite is not the same as passive." She moved closer to the table. I saw her eyes scan the documents without touching them. She had learned that much from watching me. That one, she asked, nodding toward the forged signature. "Trust amendment," I said. "Ethan was supposed to sign one. He never did. Someone tried to fix that problem with a pen, and that someone smells like perfume," she said. I tapped my pocket. The torn piece came from the hallway drawer. It carries her scent, and the handwriting is not mine. "Nor Ethan's," Hattie said. I looked at her. "You have seen his signature often. Birthday cards," she said. "Condo applications. He always signed neatly, like a boy who got good grades and wanted teachers to know." I felt a twist in my chest. The description was simple and painfully accurate. Hattie straightened. "What are you going to do until Sam gets here?" she asked. "Act normal," I said. "Make breakfast. Avoid giving Nora any reason to panic or hide things." "Good plan," she said. "I will help by pretending to be a nosy neighbor who knows nothing." "You do that very convincingly," I said. She grinned. Years of practice. Upstairs floorboards creaked. Nora's steps moved toward the stairs. Hattie's eyes widened. She pointed at the back door with a quick jerk of her chin. "I will go check the garden," she whispered. "Suddenly, I am very interested in your tulip bulbs." She slipped out the back just as Nora entered the kitchen. Nora looked at the folder on the table and then at me. "I need you to come to the dining room later," she said. "We should review those transfer forms together. It will be easier if you sign today." She spoke like a manager scheduling a performance review. "I will look at whatever you bring," I said, carefully. She shifted her weight. "I know this is overwhelming," she said. "Legal language can be confusing. Just trust me." Ethan wanted things to be simple. "Ethan likes simple," I said. "The law rarely does." She gave a practiced, sympathetic smile. "I am trying to help you, Quincy," she said. "But you have to meet me halfway. You cannot keep clinging to a house you cannot afford." She glanced at the envelope from the tax office. "Those property taxes are brutal for someone on Social Security," she added. Her voice carried that same soft blade from the funeral, wrapped in concern, sharp underneath. I folded the folder closed. "I appreciate your concern," I said. "We can discuss it after I have reviewed my own documents." She frowned. "You already did that," she said. "Back when Ethan was alive, he handled everything. You just did what he told you." "That is not how it worked," I said. "Well, that is what he told me," she replied. She turned toward the dining room. "Do not make this harder than it has to be," she said. I did not answer. She left the kitchen with a huff of frustration. Through the window above the sink, I saw Hattie's head pop up near the hedges. She crouched comically low, pretending to inspect branches. Even from here, I could tell she was straining to hear. She caught my eye and pointed 2 fingers at her own ears, then at the house. A silent way of saying, "I am listening. I am here." Despite everything, a small smile tugged at my mouth. In another life, Hattie would have made an excellent undercover agent. An hour later, a dark sedan pulled up to the curb. It was not marked, but I recognized the way it parked. Straight, precise, like its driver measured lines for a living. I opened the door before he could knock. Sam Rourke stood on my porch. His hair was more gray than I remembered. His shoulders were still broad, his eyes still sharp. "Morning, Quincy," he said. "You look steady. That is usually a warning sign. Come in," I said. He stepped inside and glanced around the hallway. His gaze moved the way mine did, taking in scuffs, missing frames, disturbed dust. "Place looks different," he said. "Nora calls it progress," I answered. He said. "My ex-wife used that word before she sold my favorite chair." We went to the kitchen. I placed the folder on the table and opened it to the forged amendment. He put on a pair of thin reading glasses and leaned in. His hands were relaxed. His eyes were not. "Do you have a known signature for comparison?" he asked. I slid Ethan's original trust acknowledgement toward him, then a copy of Ethan's employment contract. 2 documents, same hand, same year. He studied them in silence. His finger traced the real letters without touching the page. Then he looked at the alleged signature on the amendment. He did not rush. Experienced cops never rush with paper. The drama belongs to television, not to ink. After a minute, he sat back. "This is not your son's signature," he said. "I know," I answered. "This is not even a good attempt," he added. "Wrong slant, wrong pressure, wrong stroke order." "I saw the same," I said. He tapped the bottom of the page. "No notary, no witness. And the trust language itself is a copy of the unsigned version," he said. "Someone borrowed your lawyer's work and tried to finish it." "Finished badly," I said. He nodded slowly. "This is attempted fraud," he said. "It may also be forgery depending on who wrote it and when. The words did not make me happy. They did not shock me. They simply aligned with what my bones already knew." "What now?" I asked. "Now we treat this like evidence," he said. "I will photograph everything. Then I will log it properly. Chain of custody, all of it. And Nora?" I asked. He looked at me serious. "You do not confront her," he said. "Not about this. Not alone." "I can handle a conversation," I said. "I know you can," he answered. "This is not about ability. It is about leverage. Once she knows you have this, she could destroy other documents, or move money, or run." The word run sat oddly in my kitchen, but it made sense. "You still drive your old Civic?" he asked suddenly. "Yes," I said. "Then you also know how quickly someone can vanish when they feel trapped," he said. "We want the truth, not a chase." I exhaled slowly. "So I stay quiet," I said. "For now," he answered. "Let her talk. Let her keep thinking you are weak and confused. That is when people make mistakes." Outside the window, a small movement caught my eye. Hattie's scarf flashed yellow between the hedges. She was still at her post. Sam noticed and smiled faintly. "That your lookout?" he asked. "My neighbor," I said, "and a very dedicated eavesdropper." "Good," he said. "Every operation needs one." He turned back to the documents. "In 12 hours, he said, we will have these scanned, logged, and ready if this goes to a judge." 12 hours. The number echoed the thought I had spoken to an empty room the day before. Nora believed time was on her side. She did not know that every minute brought her closer to a knock on the door. Not from me, from an old friend with a badge and a file full of paper that did not lie. Sam did not like theatrics. He liked clean reports, quiet interviews, facts that held up under cross-examination. That was exactly why I wanted him there. By late afternoon, the sky over Maple Street had turned the kind of flat gray that made everything look honest. No dramatic shadows, just clear light. I sat in the passenger seat of his sedan. The folder rested on my lap. My fingers covered the forged signature, not to hide it, to steady myself. Hattie sat in the back, clutching her purse like it contained state secrets. In a way it did, mostly snacks and very sharp opinions. "You sure about this?" Sam asked Eyes on the Road. "I am," I said. Nora did not humiliate me in private. She did it publicly. The correction should match the setting. "I am not here for revenge," he said. "I am here because of the forgery and the trust." "Good," I answered. "I am here for both." Maple District Realty occupied a corner unit in a small brick plaza. Big windows, glossy posters of perfect families standing in front of perfect houses. Our house had never looked that staged. It had looked real. That used to feel enough. Through the glass, I saw Nora before we even reached the door. She stood near her desk with a young couple. She moved her hands as she spoke, confident, fluid. Another agent sat at a nearby workstation, half listening. The receptionist tapped on a keyboard, pretending not to eavesdrop. Offices like this lived on gossip and commission splits. As we stepped inside, the bell above the door chimed. The sound seemed too cheerful for what we carried. Nora glanced over her shoulder. For a second, her smile flickered. Then she slid it back into place. "Quincy," she said, "I was just telling my clients about the house. Perfect candidate for staging. It will sell fast once everything is in my name." The couple turned to look at me. They saw a small woman in an old coat standing between a detective and a neighbor with sunflower scarves. I saw myself reflected in the window beyond them. I did not look weak. I looked tired and very clear. Sam stepped slightly forward. He wore a plain jacket. His badge was not visible yet, but his posture was unmistakable. "Afternoon," he said. "Are you Nora Bennett?" She blinked. "Yes." "Can I help you with something? I am with clients right now." "We will be brief," he said. "Then you can decide how to schedule the rest of your day." The young couple shifted uncomfortably. "We can come back later," the woman said. "That might be wise," Sam replied. "This concerns a legal matter about a property Ms. Bennett has discussed." Nora's hand tightened on the back of her chair. "This is about my house," she said quickly. "A private family issue, not a police matter." "You are correct about the house," I said. "You are not correct about the rest." I set the folder on the nearest empty desk. The soft thud sounded louder than it should. Conversations in the office faded. A copier stopped mid-hum. "Ms. Bennett, Sam said you told your clients this morning that you plan to stage and sell a property you recently inherited from your late husband." She squared her shoulders. "Yes, my husband left me the house. I am getting it ready. That is what widows do when they need to survive." Several heads turned. The sympathy card still worked on some ears. "Which house is that?" Sam asked. "The one on Maple Street," she said. "The two-story colonial, my home." She glanced at me as if daring me to contradict her. I did not raise my voice. I simply opened the folder. "This," I said, "is the original deed for that house, dated April 3rd, 1992. Owner of record, me." I laid the deed on the desk so the nearest agent could see the letterhead and seal. "No co-owner," I continued. "No joint tenancy. No transfer to Ethan. No mention of you." Nora laughed once. It sounded brittle. "Paperwork can be outdated," she said. "Things change. Ethan inherited it when his mother died. He told me so." "Things can change," I said. "If the proper forms are filed, if the new deed is recorded, if there is any record at all." I nodded toward Sam. He removed a thin folder of his own. "We checked county records this morning," he said. "There has been no deed transfer on that property since 1992. The other agent, a man in his 30s, leaned closer. His eyes flicked over the document. "So the house is still in Quincy's name," he said quietly. "Yes," Sam said, "legally and publicly." The receptionist stopped pretending to type. Nora's smile crumbled at the edges. "That cannot be right. Ethan said he took care of it. He said the house was ours." I believe Ethan believed that I said. He never read legal documents carefully. He trusted people who said they had. Sam opened the next set of papers. "This is the revocable living trust Ms. Alden created in 2001, he said. "She is the grantor and trustee. Her son Ethan is a lifetime beneficiary. The assets remain under her control." He turned a page. "The house is listed as trust property," he said. "So is the life insurance. There is no clause granting ownership to Ethan upon her death. She is not dead." A small murmur rippled through the room. The other agent stepped back, clearly uncomfortable now that the word trust had entered the conversation. Nora shook her head. "I do not understand any of that. Ethan told me we were secure. He said we were building a future in that house. You were receiving support from a structure you never asked to understand, I said. Support I chose to give. That does not equal ownership. Sam laid another sheet on top of the trust. This is the insurance designation, he said, the policy from Ethan's employer. Beneficiary listed as the Alden Family Trust, not as spouse, not as Nora Bennett. The young couple who had been Nora's clients exchanged a look. The man cleared his throat. So the payout, he asked tentatively, does not go to her. No, Sam said. It goes to the trust, which is controlled by Ms. Alden. A flush crept up Nora's neck. This is not fair, she said. I have been taking care of that house. I have been taking care of her. Hattie let out a short sound that might have been a cough or a laugh. You packed her bags on the day of your husband's funeral, she said. Your definition of care is interesting. Nora snapped, You are not part of this. Actually, Sam said Ms. Monroe is listed as a witness in our notes. She heard statements you made about inheriting everything and throwing out burdens. That is relevant. The office had gone completely still. Phones rang on other desks and went unanswered. Someone in the back peeked from behind a cubicle wall. Nora's hand shook as she reached for the papers. This legal stuff is confusing, she said. Maybe there were changes Ethan did not file yet. Maybe the lawyer made a mistake. Sam slid one last page forward. That brings us to this document, he said. An alleged amendment to the trust, purporting to add you as a beneficiary. She froze. Only her eyes moved. I have never seen that, she said quickly. I do not know what that is. That answer is interesting, he said, because we found this copy in your home drawer, torn, with your perfume on it. I watched her eyes widen. Tiny movements. There is a moment when denial and calculation collide. It always shows first in the pupils. I wear that perfume everywhere, she said. You cannot prove anything from a smell. Which is why we did not stop. There, Sam replied. We compared this signature to multiple known signatures from your husband. They do not match. He tapped the page gently. This is not his hand, he said. The stroke patterns are wrong. The slant is wrong. The pressure distribution is wrong. It is a forged signature. The words dropped heavier than any accusation I could have spoken. They landed not only on Nora, but on the colleagues who had trusted her judgment. The male agent stepped back from her desk. The receptionist's mouth fell open. The young couple quietly edged toward the door. Nora gripped the back of her chair to steady herself. Color drained from her face. I would never forge Ethan's name, she said. Why would I do that? I am his wife. People commit fraud for many reasons, Sam said. Fear, greed, panic, sometimes all three. She looked at me. You are doing this, she said. You are trying to punish me because I asked you to move out. I am doing this, I said, because you tried to move lines that were never yours to touch. I kept my voice calm. It carried farther that way. You told people I was living on Social Security, I continued. You told them I did not understand finances. You assumed ignorance and used it as a tool. Her lips trembled. I was grieving. So was I said. Grief explains bad words. It does not explain forged signatures on trust documents. Sam closed the folder. The soft click of the clasp sounded like a final period. Ms. Bennett, he said, you are not under arrest at this moment. She inhaled sharply. But we have enough to open a formal investigation into attempted financial fraud and potential forgery related to this trust, he continued. Her knees seemed to soften. She clung harder to the chair. What does that mean? She asked. It means he said we need you to come in for questioning. The phrase seemed to hollow out the air around us. Even the copier in the back stopped making noise as if the machine itself understood. This is my job, she whispered. This office, my reputation. You cannot do this here. You chose to make your claims here, I said, in front of clients, in front of colleagues. I chose to correct them in the same place. Hattie stepped slightly forward. Not aggressive, just present. It is not too late to tell the truth, she said. That part is still in your hands. For a second, I saw something shift behind Nora's eyes. Not remorse yet, just the first crack in certainty. Sam pulled a business card from his pocket and set it on the desk. Maple District Station, he said. Interview room 3. We will expect you at 9 tomorrow morning. If you choose not to appear, we will proceed differently. Differently, how she asked. That is a conversation you do not want, he said. He turned to me. You will need a safer living arrangement until this is resolved, he said. We will discuss that next. I nodded. For the first time in days, my shoulders dropped a fraction. As we walked toward the door, I felt every eye in the office following us. Not with pity, not with contempt, with quiet recognition. Old woman, small frame, steady voice. Not a burden, not a victim. A witness carrying a folder that could change everything. Outside, the air felt colder and cleaner. The staging was over now. The real story had finally entered the room. The thing about consequences is simple. You never get to schedule them. They show up on their own time. The morning after the showdown at Maple District Realty, the house felt oddly quiet. Not the heavy silence of grief, a different kind. The kind that comes after you finally say the thing you have been holding back. I sat at the kitchen table with a bowl of oatmeal in my worn mug. The folder was no longer there. Sam had taken the originals for safekeeping. Copies stayed in my fireproof box. The phone rang at 8:30. For a moment, my chest tightened out of old habit. Bad news used to arrive by phone. This call was different. Quincy Sam said, "Update." I straightened without thinking. Nora came in, he continued, right at 9. No lawyer yet, just a very expensive handbag. How did she look? I asked. Tired, defensive. More offended than scared, he said. That may change. I stirred my oatmeal. It had gone cold, but I kept moving the spoon. Did she admit anything I asked? She admitted confusion, he said. Blamed Ethan. Blamed you. Blamed the attorney. Blamed the universe. Not the signature. And the forged trust page I asked. She claims she thought Ethan signed something before he died, he said. Says she found that copy in a stack of papers and assumed it was valid. Assumed, I repeated. That word keeps showing up, he said. We are sending the document to a handwriting specialist for formal confirmation. Your analysis gave us probable cause. We need the full report. I nodded, even though he could not see me. What happens to her now? I asked. For the moment, he said she is listed as a person of interest in a financial fraud investigation. She had to sign a notice acknowledging that. Is she under arrest? I asked. Not today, he said. This is not television. These cases move through paperwork. First handcuffs last. That sounds familiar, I said. It should, he replied. You taught half the department to love paper trails. He paused. There is one more thing, he added. News is traveling. Among the police, I asked. Among everyone, he said. Real estate is a small world, and people talk fast when trust is involved. After we hung up, I went to the sink and rinsed my bowl. Outside, the street looked normal. Kids walked to school. A delivery truck made its rounds. Somewhere, a dog barked at nothing. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Helen, my neighbor, who knew every story within a 5-block radius. You awake, it read. You will want coffee for this. 10 minutes later, she stood in my kitchen with a bakery bag and that look she reserved for fresh information. It is all over the office, she said, and all over their group chats. Whose office, I asked, even though I knew. Maple District Realty, she said. My niece works reception there 2 days a week. She called me the second you left yesterday, then called again this morning. Helen poured coffee like a bartender on a busy night. What did she say? I asked. That 2 buyers already requested to transfer away from Nora, Helen said. One of them is that young couple you saw. They sent an email at midnight. Midnight, I repeated. People review their life choices at that hour, Helen said. They do not like the idea that their agent does not understand who owns a house. She took a sip and shook her head. And the broker, she continued. He called Nora into his office right after she got back from the interview with Sam. Closed door, raised voice. The whole office heard through the vents. I pictured Nora sitting in a leather chair across from her broker. Same posture she used with clients, shoulders back, chin up, confidence wrapping her like a coat that no longer fit. What did he say? I asked. According to my niece, Helen said he told her this was a catastrophic breach of professional judgment and a liability for the brand. That sounds like him, I said. I had met him once at a neighborhood fundraiser. He spoke in slogans and sponsorship opportunities. He asked why she was promising to sell a house that did not belong to her, Helen said. Asked if there were any other creative interpretations of ownership in her pipeline. I almost smiled at that phrase. Creative interpretations of ownership, the polite term for people reaching into pockets that are not theirs. What did she answer? I asked. She cried, Helen said simply. Then she blamed grief and stress and being a widow. Grief is real, I said. So is responsibility. Helen nodded. He put her on temporary leave. She added, that is code for do not come back until we decide if you are worth the trouble. I looked out the window at the bare branches in my yard. Consequences, I said quietly. Helen followed my gaze. She did this, Helen said. You did not. You did not call her boss. You did not post anything online. No, I said. I handed the truth to the right people. It walked the rest of the way. Later that afternoon, Hattie came over with a bag of groceries and more commentary. She dropped the bag on the counter and kicked off her shoes. I had the most enlightening conversation last night, she said. You will appreciate this. I raised an eyebrow. With whom? I asked. With Nora's ex-husband, she said. Ran into him outside the pharmacy. He was arguing with the clerk about a coupon. That sounds about right, I said. He did not recognize me, she said, but I recognized that tone. She straightened her back and mimicked a deep, pompous voice. Do you know who I am? She said. I spend a lot of money here. I expect better treatment. I could not help it. I laughed. The sound surprised me. It had been a while. And then he said, Hattie continued, I am used to dealing with people who understand their place. She rolled her eyes. I swear, she said, that man and Nora must have practiced that condescending tone in front of a mirror. Maybe they taught each other, I said. Probably fought over who got to use it. First, she replied. The humor did not erase the damage. It softened the edges long enough to breathe. We sat at the table. Sunlight slipped across the wood. I could feel the weight of the past weeks in my shoulders, but it no longer crushed. It just sat there, honest and heavy. You know, Hattie said some people would be dancing right now. Dancing, I asked. Your almost daughter-in-law is under investigation, she said. Her clients are leaving. Her broker is furious. That is a full revenge package for some folks. I am not some folks, I said. I know, she answered. That is why I bring the sarcasm. You bring the dignity. I did not want her destroyed, I said. I wanted her stopped. Hattie watched me carefully. Explain the difference, she said. Stopping someone is about protecting what is still whole, I said. Destroying them is about satisfaction. And you are not satisfied, she asked. No, I said. I am relieved that the truth is standing in the open, but nothing about this feels like victory. She nodded slowly. You never wanted her in handcuffs, she said. I wanted her to stop treating my life as a piece of staging furniture, I answered. I wanted her to stop rewriting Ethan's story and mine. And if she learns something from this, Hattie asked, then the consequences will have done their job, I said. Not because I demanded it, because the truth demanded it. That night, the neighborhood group chat lit up on my phone. I rarely read it. People argued about trash pickup and lawn heights. This time, the topic line caught my eye. Question about working with real estate agents, one neighbor wrote. What do you do if you find out your agent misrepresented a property? Replies came quickly. Some mentioned contracts, others mentioned reviews. A few mentioned the situation with Nora at Maple District. No one attacked her outright. They did not have all the facts. What they did have was a new caution. Trust had shifted, not just around Nora, around the idea that appearances could be taken at face value. I put the phone down and turned off the lamp. Before bed, I stood in the hallway and looked at the staircase gallery. Some of the family photos had found their way back to the wall. Hattie had helped me rehang them that afternoon. Slowly, carefully. Ethan's teenage grin, Margaret's warm eyes. My own younger face, more lined now, only in different ways. I did not do this to ruin you, I thought, speaking to a woman who was not there. I did this so you could not ruin anyone else. The next morning, Sam called again. Internal review opened at her brokerage, he said, and the state licensing board has been notified. That is standard when allegations involve client trust. Will she lose her license? I asked. Too early to tell, he said. They will look at patterns, not just this one document. Patterns. The word mattered. Anyone can make a mistake once, but patterns show character. When we ended the call, I walked to the front window and looked out at my street. Normal life moved on. Kids waited for the bus. A mail carrier did his rounds. Somewhere someone was baking bread. The world had not changed in any dramatic way, but my personal orbit had shifted. My suitcase was no longer in Nora's trunk. My future was no longer in her hands. My story was no longer trapped under her version. I had not screamed. I had not slammed doors. I had not posted her name online. I had simply opened a folder and let the right people read it. Sometimes you do not need to chase revenge. Sometimes you stand still and let the consequences catch up on their own. And when they do, you step back and let the truth do what you never could do, by force. It teaches, it exposes, it rearranges what people thought they knew, quietly, relentlessly. Just like an old filing cabinet that no one expects to matter until the day it changes everything. 3 days after Sam opened the case, he called again. This part will not be pleasant, he said, but it will be necessary. He asked me to meet at the station, not for an interrogation, for a conversation, one that needed walls and witnesses. I arrived early. Old habit. The lobby smelled like coffee floor cleaner and tired air. Officers moved with quiet purpose. Phones rang and stopped. A clerk led me down a short hall to a small interview room. Table. 3 chairs. No glass, no drama, just gray walls. Sam waited by the corner. He wore the same plain jacket. A slim folder rested under his hand. Thank you for coming, he said. I have missed these cheerful rooms, I said. He smiled briefly. Then his expression settled into work mode. Nora is on her way, he said. She agreed to speak with you present. She thinks it will make her look cooperative. Is it wise? I asked. Wise is relative, he said. But it is legal. And it gives you a chance to set boundaries clearly. The word boundaries steadied me more than the chair. A few minutes later, the door opened. Nora stepped in, wearing a dark blazer and a paler face. Her eyes looked bruised with sleep. She stopped when she saw me. You invited her, she asked Sam. I did, he said. This conversation concerns her property, her trust, and her son. She has a right to hear it. Nora sank into the chair opposite me. She set her purse on the floor like a shield. For a while, no one spoke. The air felt heavy but not explosive. I never meant for any of this to happen, she said finally. I am still grieving. Everything feels upside down. Grief sat between us like a 4th chair. Real, heavy, not enough to explain everything else in the room. I lost Ethan too, I said. She stared at the table. You had him for 35 years, she said. I had 8. It is not the same. She said it like a complaint, not a confession. No, I said. It is not the same. I carried him before he breathed. I buried him after you folded his tie. Her mouth tightened. I was the one answering calls, she said. I chose the casket. I signed the funeral papers. People expected me to be strong. They expected you to be decent, I said. She looked up sharply. I was under pressure, she said. Bills, clients, everyone asking questions. I thought the house would be security. I thought the trust was mine too. You thought I said quietly. You did not ask. I did ask, she insisted. Ethan told me we were fine. He told me he had taken care of things. He said the house was ours. Ethan did not understand the papers, I said. He never pretended otherwise. You did. Her shoulders slumped. I was drowning, she said. Grief, mortgage, this job. I made assumptions. I spoke carelessly. I pushed too hard. She looked at me with wet eyes. I told you to leave, she said. I heard myself, and I hated it. But I could not stop. I felt cornered. I let the words sit for a moment. They deserved a pause, not a pardon. Grief is real, I said. Pressure is real. Misunderstandings are real. I held her gaze. But grief is not a license to be cruel, I said. The sentence landed between us with a soft thud. No shout, no echo, just wait. She swallowed hard. I know what I said at the funeral, she whispered. I hear it in my head at night. It sounds worse every time. You told me to stop crying, I said. You gave me 30 days to leave my own house. You called me a burden. Her face twisted. Shame flickered through the defensive anger. I felt like the ground was gone, she said. I grabbed whatever control I could. The house was something I could touch. So you tried to take it, I said, not just with words, with ink. Sam opened the folder. The sound of the metal clip echoed slightly in the small room. Nora, he said, we received the preliminary report from the handwriting specialist. She flinched at his tone. It was not unkind. It was precise. The signature on the amended trust is not Ethan's, he said. The analyst notes clear markers of forgery, stroke order, pressure, structural inconsistencies. She pressed her fingers to her forehead. I told you, she said. I thought it was already signed. I thought maybe the lawyer had a copy. I did not forge it. This is not a trial, Sam said. You are not being asked to prove innocence in this room. You are being informed of the legal landscape. He spoke slowly. Each word landed with care. At this point, he continued, we are treating the document as evidence of attempted signature fraud involving trust property. She stared at him. What does attempted fraud even mean for me? She asked. Am I going to jail? Attempted fraud means someone used or prepared a false document to gain financial advantage, he said. Whether charges are filed depends on several factors, such as she asked, intent, impact, cooperation, pattern, he said. Right now you have an opportunity to cooperate. That will matter. Her hands shook. She folded them together to hide it. I never wanted to steal from Ethan, she said. I just wanted to survive. You wanted to survive by standing on someone else's neck, I said. Not just mine. His memory, too. She looked at me, hurt, flickering with anger. You think I did not love him, she said. I think you loved the life he let you live, I said. And when he died, you tried to secure that life by force. Tears welled in her eyes. She blinked them back. I have lost clients, she said. My broker put me on leave. People look at me like I am poison at open houses. Consequences, I said quietly. They arrive whether we invite them or not. Sam closed the folder. There is another matter, he said. The living arrangement at the Maple Street house. Nora nodded stiffly. I know she owns it now, she said, gesturing toward me. Everyone knows. My reputation is bleeding because everyone knows. You are currently living there without a lease, he said. No rent, no written agreement. That will have to change. She gave a short, broken laugh. What are my options? She asked. You expect me to pay market rent to a woman who wants me gone. I took a breath. Slow, steady. This part was mine to say, not his. I did not want you homeless, I said. I wanted you honest. She waited, shoulders tight, jaw set. When Ethan died, I said you gave me 30 days to leave. You printed a timeline. You circled a date in red. Her cheeks flushed. I remember, she whispered. So here is what I am giving you, I said. 30 days from today to move out of my house. Her head snapped up. "You are evicting me," she said. "I am setting the same boundary you set for me," I answered. "The difference is simple. I own the house. You never did." She shook her head slowly. "I have nowhere to go," she said. "Rent is insane. My income is unstable now. I'm starting over at 36. I started over at 65, I said. And again at 67 when Margaret died. Starting over hurts. It is still possible." She gripped the edge of the table. "You could let me stay," she said. "Charge me rent. Use the trust money. We could figure something out." "There is no we here," I said gently. "You broke that when you tried to erase my place in my own life." Silence filled the room. It was not cruel. It was final. Sam spoke again. His voice softened slightly. 30 days is more generous than many landlords would offer," he said. "You will need to document any new arrangement elsewhere. Keep records clean this time." Nora stared at the tabletop. "So that is it," she said. "I lose my husband. I lose my job. I lose my home, all at once." "You lost Ethan to an accident," I said. "You are losing the job and the house to your choices." She looked at me with a mixture of resentment and reluctant understanding. "How can you be so calm about this?" she asked. I thought about the filing cabinet, about Margaret's laugh in the kitchen, about Ethan's crooked grin over textbooks he barely read. "Because I know the difference between revenge and boundaries," I said. "Revenge tries to hurt. Boundaries try to protect. Protect who she asked. Me," I said. And the memory of the people who loved this house for what it was not, what it could be flipped into. Her shoulders lowered just a fraction. "What am I supposed to do now?" she asked. "Find a place you can afford," I said. "Tell the truth when people ask about this. Learn the difference between entitlement and security." Sam stood. "I will walk you out," he said. "We still have formal paperwork to finalize, notices to sign. You know how it goes." She rose slowly. At the doorway, she stopped and looked back at me. If I had been kind from the beginning, she asked, "Would you have shared the trust with me?" I held her eyes. "If you had been kind," I said, "we would have faced the future together. The trust would have been a tool, not a weapon." She nodded once. "Quiet people are dangerous," she said. I did not know that. "Quiet people are not dangerous," I said. "We are just careful about when we use our strength." After they left, I remained in the room a few minutes longer. The chair felt hard. The air felt lighter. I was not triumphant. I was not broken. I was simply steady. People had mistaken my silence for weakness, my modest life for dependency, my grief for confusion. They were wrong. Quiet strength is not flashy. It does not slam doors or shout down crowds. It sits at the table. It brings documents. It tells the truth. And when the time comes to draw a line, it uses a pen, not a knife. Healing does not arrive like a delivery truck. It slips in quietly while you are doing ordinary things, washing dishes, folding shirts, dusting picture frames you once avoided. 2 days after the meeting at the station, I started with the hallway. For weeks, I had walked past Ethan's photos without really seeing them. Nora had taken some down, then put a few back when people noticed. They sat crooked, out of order. Saturday morning, I brought a small step stool and a soft cloth. The house was quiet. No slamming doors, no phone calls about showings, just the hum of the refrigerator and the faint creak of old wood. I took every frame off the wall. On the dining table, I set them in rows. Ethan with missing front teeth, Ethan in a middle school band uniform, Ethan at his college graduation squinting into the sun. For a long time, I did not move. I just looked. Loss felt less like a sharp knife now, more like a stone I had learned to carry. Heavy, but familiar. "I am not staging you," I whispered to the photographs. "I am putting you back where you belong." I cleaned each frame with careful strokes. The glass fogged slightly from my breath, then cleared. His face came into focus again and again. I rehung them in a new order, not by age, by feeling. The silly ones near the stairs, the serious ones near the top, the ones with Margaret where I could see them every morning. When I finished, the wall looked less like a gallery and more like a memory that finally made sense. Hattie arrived just as I stepped off the stool. She carried a pie tin in one hand and a grocery bag in the other. "I brought apple pie," she announced. "The kind with an indecent amount of butter." "That sounds medical," I said. "For the soul, at least." She walked into the hallway and stopped. "Oh," she breathed. "You put them back properly." "I put them back honestly," I said. "No more neutral artwork about boats." Ethan hated boats. She laughed. "Your daughter-in-law had terrible taste," she said. "Her staging made this place look like a discount resort." I raised an eyebrow. "A discount resort?" I asked. "You know," she said, "those places with plastic plants and quotes on the wall about live, laugh, love in fake cursive. There was that canvas," I said, "the one with driftwood and the word breathe spelled wrong." Hattie shook her head. "Exactly," she said. "It never felt like a home. It felt like she was constantly rehearsing for a catalog photo." We moved to the kitchen. She set the pie on the counter and pulled coffee mugs from the cabinet like she owned them. In her own way, she did. "Sit," she said. "Therapy requires seated posture and sugar." We ate warm pie at the table. Cinnamon and baked apples filled the air. The house smelled like my early years with Margaret. Holidays, birthdays, ordinary Sundays. "I forgot what this house smelled like," I said quietly. "You do not forget," Hattie said. "Grief just puts a tarp over it for a while." I thought about the tarp, about the weeks when everything felt covered. The funeral, the arguments, the paperwork, the shame that was not mine but still filled the rooms. "Do you talk to him?" she asked suddenly. "Ethan," I asked. She nodded. "Sometimes," I said, not out loud, mostly in questions, like what she asked. Like, "Would you forgive her?" I said. Or, "Did you really think the house was yours?" Or, "Are you mad at me for how this ended?" "And what does he say?" she asked. "Nothing," I said. "He just smiles that same crooked smile in those photos. I decide the rest." She sipped her coffee. "I think he would be relieved," she said, "to know you were not sitting in a small apartment somewhere letting people treat you like charity." "I did not want war," I said. "I wanted my life back." "You got a piece of both," she said. "Small war, big life." We sat in companionable silence for a while. Outside, a delivery truck rumbled past. Somewhere down the street, a child laughed. The world kept moving. In the afternoon, I tackled Ethan's room, not to erase it, to edit it. The bed still held the same navy comforter he liked. The desk had stacks of papers Nora had piled there. Real estate brochures, checklists, staging catalogs. I gathered all of Nora's things into one cardboard box. I did not rummage. I did not rip. I simply returned her world to its container. I wrote her name on the side. Simple block letters. Ethan's things I handled differently. I kept his college hoodie, his worn-out running shoes with one lace nearly torn, the box of engineering textbooks he swore he would reread one day. I donated some old clothes to a shelter. I set aside others for Margaret's old church sale. Small steps, slow decisions. No rushing. Hattie appeared in the doorway mid-afternoon. "You are doing it right," she said. "Not all at once, just one shelf at a time." "I cannot change that he is gone," I said. "But I can decide what stays of him. That is the real estate that matters," she said. "The real estate inside your chest." I smiled. "You have been spending too much time listening to my metaphors," I said. "Occupational hazard of being your friend," she replied. 2 days later, Sam came by. No suit, no folder, just a windbreaker and the same serious eyes. "May I come in?" he asked. "You know the answer," I said. We sat at the kitchen table, now cleared of legal paper and covered with a simple runner Margaret had sewn. "How are you?" he asked. "Putting photos back on walls," I said. "Evicting cheap decor from my life." "That sounds like progress," he said. "What about the case?" I asked. He rested his hands on the table. "The handwriting report is final," he said. "The analyst states in clear language that the amendment signature is forged." I nodded. I had expected nothing else. It still rang in my chest. The prosecutor has reviewed the file he went on. Given the money involved and the trust structure, they could file multiple charges. Will they? I asked. Maybe he said. But they are leaning toward a deal if she cooperates fully. Full admission, written apology, formal renunciation of any claim to the trust. No jail, I asked. Probably not, he said, but a record, professional consequences, licensing review, financial restrictions. I let that sink in. It is enough, I said finally. He studied my face. You are sure, he asked. Yes, I said. I do not need to watch her in a courtroom. I needed the law to say out loud what I already knew, that the house is yours, he asked. That the truth is mine, I said. He nodded slowly. There is one more piece of paper, he said, pulling a single sheet from his jacket. This is from her attorney. He slid it across the table. It was a formal notice. Nora agreed to vacate the property within 30 days. She acknowledged my ownership and the trust's rights. She waived any claim to Ethan's insurance policy. At the bottom was her signature. This one was real, uneven, shaken, but real. This one matches, Sam said. Our analyst checked it too. No performance in that hand, only fatigue. I traced the edge of the paper without touching the ink. So it ends in pen, I said. The same way it began. Most battles do, he replied. Guns are for movies. Paper is for real life. We sat quietly for a moment. You know what I admire about you, Quincy, he said. I can make decent coffee, I said. That too, he said. But mostly that you never once asked me to get her or make her pay. And you asked me to get it right. I have lost enough to accidents, I said. I could not stand losing the truth to ego as well. He stood and looked around the kitchen. His eyes lingered on the faint patch of wall where a trendy canvas once hung. This feels more like your house again, he said. It is, I said. Not because of the deed, because of the way the air feels. After he left, Hattie came by with more coffee and half of a new pie. You are going to make me gain weight, I said. You are going to make me believe in due process, she replied. We all have our burdens. We ate in the living room this time. Sunlight fell across the rug in a wide stripe. Dust motes floated in the air like slow snow. Does it feel better? She asked. Not better, I said. Just clearer. The sadness is still here. It is just no longer mixed with someone else's greed. She nodded. Healing is not a makeover, she said. It is a clean floor and honest furniture, and fewer fake coastal paintings, I added. We laughed again. The sound echoed differently now, less strained, more like it belonged. That night, I walked through the house with the lights off. I knew every step, every corner, every creak. In Ethan's room, I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the boxes stacked neatly by the wall. Some marked donate, some marked keep, none marked staging. I did what I could, I said softly. For you, for me, for the truth. The room did not answer. It did not need to. Healing had not arrived all at once. It had come in small acts, returning photos to walls, baking pies, signing legal documents that told the story correctly. It came in saying no without shouting, in saying yes to boundaries, in letting the law handle what fists never could. I went back to the hallway and stood under Ethan's graduation picture. I cannot fix how you died, I thought, but I can fix how people treat the life you left behind. The house felt like itself again, not perfect, not new, just honest. Sometimes that is all healing is, not forgetting, not pretending it never hurt, just breathing in a room that finally tells the truth when no one is watching. Slow, quiet, real. Exactly the way strength has always worked for me. On the 30th day, the house was quiet again. No workers, no boxes in the hallway, no strange furniture catalogs on my table. I had done small things all month. Repaired a loose cabinet hinge, labeled files in the basement, baked a pie with Hattie and ate it in the living room. Healing did not feel dramatic. It felt like routine, returning one piece at a time. That afternoon, clouds moved slowly over Maple Street. The light outside turned soft and even. I was in the kitchen rinsing coffee cups when the doorbell rang. I knew who it was before I reached the hallway. Some arrivals carry a specific weight. I opened the door. Nora stood on the porch with a cardboard box in her arms. No blazer, no staged smile, just jeans, a sweater, and a tired face. Behind her, the trunk of her car was closed. The driveway looked almost normal again. She cleared her throat. "I brought some things," she said. "They belong here." Her voice was quieter than I remembered. I stepped aside. "Come in," I said. "The box looks heavy." Inside the house smelled like coffee and lemon cleaner, not like candles from staging stores. She set the box on the coffee table, the same table where Hattie and I had eaten pie and argued about television endings. For a moment, neither of us moved. "I will not stay long," she said. "I know this is not my house anymore." I sat in my usual chair. She stayed standing, hands resting on the box flaps. "What did you bring?" I asked. She opened the box slowly. On top was Ethan's college mug with the faded logo. Under it, a stack of Margaret's handwritten recipe cards tied with string. "I found these in one of my suitcases," she said. "I had packed them without thinking. They did not feel right in my new place." She set the mug on the table. "It looked wrong in my cabinet," she said, like it was staring at me. I picked up the mug. The handle fit my hand the same way it had for years. "Thank you," I said. She nodded. "I also found these," she said, pulling out a small framed photo. It was from Ethan's 30th birthday. We were laughing at something outside the frame. The image was slightly crooked, but our joy was clear. "I think I grabbed it the night of the funeral," she said. "I do not remember. That whole week is foggy. Grief does that. It blurs straight lines. It does not write trust documents or print eviction timelines. You can put it back where you want," she said. "I lost the right to decide that." I set the photo gently beside the mug. We stood in silence for a long moment. Finally, she spoke again. "I have replayed that day in my head," she said. "The funeral, the kitchen, the words I used." Her hands twisted together. At the time, she continued, "I thought I was being strong, taking charge, doing what needed to be done." She gave a short, humorless laugh. "I sounded exactly like every arrogant agent I swore I would never become," she said. I let her talk. "I told myself you were helpless," she added, "that I was rescuing both of us by taking control." She looked around the room, at the photos now back on the walls, at the furniture in its old, honest position. "I told clients you could not manage your finances," she said, "that Ethan handled everything, that you were a burden." The word did not sting this time. It sat there stripped of power. "I thought the insurance was mine," she continued. "I thought the house was mine. I thought your quiet meant ignorance." She met my eyes. For the first time, there was no challenge there, only understatement and regret. "I built an entire story in my head," she said, "a story where I was the responsible one and you were the charity case." She drew a shaky breath. "I was wrong," she said. Simply, clearly. The words did something no legal document could do. They placed responsibility where it belonged. "I abused your grief," she said. "I used Ethan's death as cover for my fear and my greed." Tears gathered at the edges of her eyes. She wiped them away with the back of her hand. "Everyone keeps telling me I made mistakes," she said. "They say I let stress get to me." She shook her head. "But it was not just stress," she said. "It was arrogance, and entitlement, and disrespect." I nodded once. "Grief explains some things I said. It never excuses cruelty." She closed her eyes for a moment. "You said that at the station," she whispered. "It has been echoing in my head every night." She opened her eyes again. "I am not asking you to forgive me," she said. "I am not asking for a second chance in this house. I know that door is closed." She glanced at the recipe cards on the table. "I came because I needed to return what was never mine," she said. "The objects, the story, the benefit of the doubt. We sat with that." "Have you found a place?" I asked. "A small apartment across town," she said. "Top floor." Thin walls. Honest rent. Work, I asked. I am not at the brokerage anymore, she said. We agreed it was better for everyone. She smiled weakly. I am taking a course on ethics for licensed professionals, she said. Mandatory thanks to the board. How does it feel, I asked. Like sitting in a classroom built from my own choices, she said. Every example feels familiar. I believed her. I cannot fix what I did to your reputation, she added. I cannot unring the bell in this neighborhood. You did not break my reputation, I said. You tried to. You broke your own. She exhaled slowly. That might be the fairest thing anyone has said to me in weeks, she said. Neither of us cried. We were past that stage. Our tears had been spent in different rooms for the same man. I miss him, she said finally. I miss the way he calmed me down when I started spiraling about money. I miss the way he rolled his eyes at your spirals, I said. Then did the right thing anyway. We shared a small, sad smile. Ethan had many flaws, I said, but he did not weaponize the law. He respected it even when he did not understand every word. She looked down at her hands. You spent your life with numbers and rules, she said. I spent my life with sales and appearances. Both have weight, I said. One collapses faster. She nodded. I have learned something, she said. Legal consequences hurt. Financial loss hurts. But the worst part has been hearing my own words repeated back. Words reveal character, I said. So do signatures. We sat in quiet again. The clock in the hallway ticked steadily. I will not come back here after today, she said, unless you need something from Ethan's things. You can call me. Or not. I will call if needed, I said, not out of obligation, out of clarity. She stood and picked up her purse. At the doorway, she paused. One question, she said. Yes, I replied. If I had asked, instead of demanded, she said, if I had been respectful from the start, would you have helped me? I thought about Margaret's hands kneading dough, about Ethan measuring bookshelves badly, about the trust documents in the basement. Yes, I said. Respect has always been the only price I charge. She nodded. It hurt her to hear that. It was supposed to. I believe you, she said. She opened the door. Light from the porch outlined her silhouette. For what it is worth, she added, quiet people scare me now. In a good way. Quiet people are not here to scare you, I said. We are just not negotiating our dignity anymore. She stepped onto the porch and left without looking back. I watched her walk down the path and into her new life. Not with satisfaction, with recognition. Consequences had done what they were meant to do. They had not erased the loss. They had not turned me into a hero or her into a monster. They had simply aligned behavior with reality. I closed the door and returned to the living room. The mug, the recipes, and the photo waited on the table. Small pieces of a life that would never be whole again, but would always be honest. I placed the photo back on the hallway wall. It fit between Margaret's smile and Ethan's childhood drawing of our house. Respect sat there too, invisible, non-negotiable. If you are listening to this and you have ever been treated like a burden because you are quiet or old or modest, hear me. You are not weak. You are not invisible. You are not something to be staged or cleared out when someone wants a new era. You have the right to boundaries, to legal protection, to your own story told truthfully. Ask questions. Keep records. Protect what is yours. Not just the house or the money, your dignity. Quiet people are not weak. We are just selective about when we speak. And when we finally decide the moment has come, the world learns something important. Respect is not a gift. It is a requirement. And it is never up for negotiation. If you stayed with me until the end of this story, thank you. Stories like mine are not just about loss. They are about boundaries, truth, and the quiet strength many of us carry. If this chapter of my life reminded you of something in your own, I invite you to share it in the comments. You are not alone. Your voice matters here. Before you go, tell me which city you are listening from. I read every comment and it helps me feel connected to our little community. And if you want more true stories about dignity, family, and justice, make sure to like this video and subscribe. It truly supports the channel and helps these stories reach the people who need them most. Check the pinned comment below for today's question and for the full set of hashtags if you want to follow this series. I hope my journey reminds you of one thing: quiet people are not weak. We are simply selective. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next story. The silence in the hallway sounded wrong. Even the framed photos seemed to lean inward as if they were waiting for footsteps that would never come.